Hello there, this is Rahul and today we are going to talk about the VPC endpoint. This is our target setup which we are going to perform into this demo, but let's understand what is VPC endpoint. If you go by the definition of a VPC endpoint, then it says that if you don't want to leave your AWS premises or AWS boundary, then you should use VPC endpoint to reach the resources. So what does it mean? So here onto this diagram, you can see this is our AWS boundary where all the resources are present. So within the AWS boundary, we are having a VPC, which is our virtual private cloud. And in this VPC, we are having subnet. One is the public subnet and one is our private subnet. So what happens like if a resource wants to communicate from our private VPC to our S3 bucket. So S3 bucket is not lying within the VPC, but it is within your AWS environment. So how can we do that? So for that, we need to use our VPC endpoint. So here you can see this is our VPC endpoint, which is attached to our VPC. So any resource which is present inside our private subnet, for example, this is EC2, will go and check with the VPC endpoint, and that VPC endpoint will help to communicate or to reach out to the S3 bucket present into your AWS account. So what's the benefit of this approach? So you don't need to leave your AWS environment and you can reach the resources within the AWS. So you don't need, or your request don't need to traverse through internet and reach to that particular resource. So that's one of the biggest advantage of using the VPC. And let's start step by step, and we'll start first setting up our VPC. So we are just gonna break the whole implementation into multiple steps. So this is my AWS account, and the first thing which we need to set up over here is the VPC. So that is going to be our step number 1. So here you can see this is our AWS account, and inside that AWS account, first of all, I'm just gonna set up my VPC. So let's head over to my AWS console and start setting up our VPC. Here is my AWS dashboard, and in the search box, you need to type VPC. Click on the VPC. And here click on the create VPC. And here we need to create the VPC by assigning the name. So I'm just going to select the VPC only, and the name I'm just going to put demo VPC endpoint VPC. And after that, we need to assign the IP address for our VPC. So I'm just going to go with 11.0.0.0 /16. So this is going to be the CIDR range, and all the resources within our VPC will get the IP addresses with the range 11.0.0.0. So we can have a multiple IP addresses with the help of this CIDR range. Okay, so after assigning the CIDR range, just click on the create VPC. And here you can see our VPC has been created. Let's take a look on to the next step. So in the next step, we will gonna set up the subnet, and the subnet when we are talk about, then we are gonna set up 2 subnet. One is the public subnet and one is the private subnet. So let's go back to our AWS console. But one more thing here, I would like to show you the IP ranges of our subnet. So as I told you, like the CIDR range of our VPC is this one, 11.0.0.0/16. So the public and the private subnet will also get the similar IP ranges, because we are gonna create those subnet within the VPC. So here the public subnet, I will keep the range 11.0.1.0/24 and 11.0.2.0/24. So this /16 and /24 are the ranges or the available IP ranges which you will get. So if you choose 224, then you will get 256 IP, and if you reduce this number, then your IP ranges will increase, so that you can have a multiple IPs available within your subnet. I'm just going to show you when we are going to do this onto our AWS console. So our public subnet will have a 1.0 and 2.0 at the end of their CIDR range, and our private subnet will end with 3.0 and 4.0, just to give you the heads up like what's our IP range is gonna be. Okay, so let's go back to our AWS console and go to your VPC dashboard once again, and here you will find subnet. So here we just need to create our own subnet. So just check the name of the VPC so that we can keep the similar name for our subnets also. So I just copied the name, go to subnets, click on create subnet. And here, first of all, we need to select the same VPC where we are working. So this is the VPC which we have created. So select that one. And here I'm just going to put subnet public, and then I'm just going to suffix the name. So demo VPC endpoint, and then 1A. 1A is the availability zone. So I'm just going to copy this name to create other subnet as well. So here in the availability zone, I'm just going to choose Europe West 1A. Then after that, the IP ranges. So here we need to enter the IP range. So I'm just going to put 11.0 .1.0/24, and tag I'm just going to keep as it is. Then click on add new subnet. Then here we are going to create one more public subnet. So here we have already created one public subnet. Let's create second public subnet over here. So I'm just going to put the name over here as subnet. We already copied the name, so I'm just going to paste it over here, and here I'm just going to change it to 1B. Availability zone I'm just going to choose 1B, and the IP range I'm just going to choose 11.0.2.0/24. and here you can see the IP range is 256. So as you reduce the number, then you will get more IP ranges. So here you can see now you are having 65,000 IP ranges, but for the demo I'm just going to go with 24. Okay, so two public subnet we have created. Let's create our private subnet. So here I'm just going to put the same name, and here I'm just going to change it to private. And availability zone I'm just going to choose Europe West 1A, and IP ranges I'm just going to choose 11.0.0. Sorry, it should be 3.0/24. Okay, so this is our third subnet, which is our private subnet. Then click add more subnet, and here just enter this name and change it to private, and put 1B over here. Availability zone choose 1B, and the IP range I'm just going to choose 1.0.4.0 and then /24. So this is going to be the IP range for my fourth subnet, which is my private subnet. And then click on just verify the details, like private subnet. The name is a little bit incorrect here, so I'm just gonna put this name over here. Okay, so I corrected that name, and let's verify other subnets also. So just correct that one. That looks okay to me. This one also, and this one also. Okay, so all the four subnets are pretty much ready. Then click on create subnet over here. And here you can see all the four subnet has been created. Let's take a look onto the diagram once again. So now our VPC is there, our subnets are there. So next thing which we need to do is we need to set up our internet gateway. So where our internet gateway will reside. So our internet gateway will reside onto our public subnet. So which is this. So let's go back to our AWS console over here and go to VPC dashboard. And here click on the left hand side, you will find an option for an internet gateway. So here you can see this is the internet gateway option. So click on it, click on internet gateway. And here we need to assign the name. So I'm just gonna put a VPC endpoint IGW. So IGW is the internet gateway abbreviation, and then click on create internet gateway. And here you can see our internet gateway has been created, but the state is detached. So we need to attach to our VPC. So first of all, let's take a look onto the diagram. So this internet gateway is still a part of our VPC. So that's why we need to attach this internet gateway to this VPC. So go back here, click through action, click on attach VPC, select the VPC, which is our demo endpoint VPC, which we have created, and then click on attach it. So now it has been attached. And the next thing we will do when we create a route table, then we are gonna use this internet gateway with our public subnet in our route table. So that the next in the further steps we are gonna perform that thing. Okay, so now our internet gateway has been attached to our VPC. Let's move further, and the next step is our route table. So we need to create two route table over here. So here you can see this is our route table for our public subnet, and this is our route table for our private subnet. Okay, so let's go back to our AWS console, and from the left navigation menu you will find an option for a route table. So click on this route table here, and then click on create route table, and here we need to enter the name. So I'm just gonna put VPC and point demo public route table. RT is for route table. The VPC, again, if you take a look, then these route tables are again a part of a same VPC. So we need to attach to that VPC. So that is our demo VPC endpoint. And then click on, I'll just copy the name to create my private VPC, but then just click on create route table. So here you can see our public route table has been created, but let's go back and create our one more route table, which is our private route table, which you can see over here. This is our private route table. Okay, so click on create route table and then put the name and change it to private. Again, select the VPC. So that is going to be our demo VPC endpoint VPC, and then click on create route table over here. And here you can see our route tables has been created. So our public and private route table is ready. But as I told you in the previous step, we need to attach this internet gateway to our route table so that this public subnet will still have the access to the internet. But remember, we are not going to attach this internet gateway to our private route table. Then it will not become a private route, private subnet. So the key rule over here is the internet gateway will provide the internet access to our subnet, and whatever subnet have the internet gateway is gonna be called public subnet. But here in the private subnet, we are not gonna attach any internet gateway. So that's the key thing to remember in this whole setup also. All right, so let's go back to our route table, and here I'm just gonna choose our public route table, which is this one. So click on this one. And here, first of all, we need to attach this route table or associate this route table to our public subnet. So here you can see this route table is a part of this our public subnet. So let's go to the subnet association over here. And here you can see this list is empty. I'll scroll it down. So here you can see this whole list is empty. Click on edit subnet association. And if you scroll here, then you will find our public subnet. So click this and this. Don't attach private subnet over here because this route table is only for our public subnet. Okay, click on save association, and here you can see the public subnet is attached to this or associated with our public route table. Okay, go to routes now, then click on edit routes, and here click on add route, and now we are specifying a route to get the internet access. So here the IP ranges I'm just going to assign is 0.0.0/0, which means it is open for everyone. Okay, and here we need to choose internet gateway and then select the internet gateway, which is our VPC endpoint internet gateway. Select that one, then click on save changes. So now our public subnet has internet access with the help of internet gateway, and the route tables has been updated. After updating our public route table, we need to work on our private route table as well. So we need to associate our private subnet with this particular private route table. So go back to our AWS console here, and here I'll just close this one. So here you will find a private route table which we have already created. So click on this route table, go to subnet association, click on edit subnet association, and from the list just select the private subnet for this particular route table. So select this one and this subnet. Okay, then click on save association, and now your private route table is now associated with your private subnets. Let's move to the next step, and in the next step we are going to set up the EC2 instances. So here if you take a look onto this diagram, then we are going to set up EC2 instance first of all into our public subnet, and then we are going to set up into our private subnet. So the idea over here is that we will be using our EC2 instance. So if you take a look over here, then we are gonna later on using this public EC2 instance to log into our private EC2 instance, because this private subnet doesn't allow any access from outside. So first of all, a person who is sitting over here like me has to get the access to our public instance, which is this one. So first we will set up our EC2 instance into public subnet. We will SSH into this EC2 instance, and from there we are gonna access into our private EC2 instance. So let's go back to our AWS console and start setting up our first public EC2 instance into our public subnet. Alright, so here is my AWS console. In the search box, type EC2, click on this EC2 over here, and here you can see no instances running. So click on launch instances, and in the name just type public EC2 instance, and application OS image I'm just gonna choose Amazon Linux, and instance type I'm just gonna choose t2.micro. But if you're doing it for your own project, then just choose the suitable instance which fits your need. Okay, then click on key pair. So if we need to generate the key pair, so here click on create key pair, because this keys we are gonna use it to SSH. So we are gonna create the public key and the private key. So here we need to click on create key pair, enter the name. So I'm just gonna put VPC Endpoint demo keys, and then click on create key pair over here, And as soon as you will create this key, then you will find a key which has been already downloaded for you. And this is going to be your private key. So just keep in mind that this key, you need to keep it with yourself. And here at the same time, the public key will be associated to your EC2 instance. Okay, so this is the key which we have created. Then go ahead and click on network setting, click on edit over here. And here we need to again go back and check the diagram. Why I'm saying so? Because this EC2 instance is present into this VPC, which is our VPC endpoint demo VPC, which we have created. So go back over here, then from the drop down, choose this VPC, which we have created for this particular session. Subnet. So we need to choose our public subnet because we are working into the public subnet. So go back over here and go and choose our public demo VPC endpoint 1A subnet. So we have chosen this one. Okay. Assign public IP. Yes, this is our public instance. So I'm just going to enable and assign the public IP. Security group. So let's check those. So here you can see the security group for SSH is already enabled so that we can SSH into our EC2 instance. So that is already there. So just keep the thing as it is. Let's go ahead and advanced detail. I'm just not going to change anything over here. And I think we are good. Then just click on launch instances. And here you can see our instance has been launched over here. So I'll just remove this filter, and here you can see the instance is in pending state. So I'll be back once this instance is up and running. Let's refresh this page over here. And here you can see the instance is now into running state. So click on this instance ID and copy this public IP address from here, because we need to SSH into our EC2 instance. And also how to SSH. So all the instruction you can find, I'll show you once again. So here just click on connect button over here, and here you will find the option to SSH into your EC2 instance. So here you need to first of all change the mode of our key, which we have already downloaded, which you can see, which is this one. This is our private key. And then we are going to use this SSH command to log in into our EC2 instance. All right, so let me open my terminal over here, and I'm just gonna drag my terminal here. So let's reduce the size of this terminal so that you can see all the commands. So yeah, I think this is good now. Let's go to the downloads directory where I have already downloaded. And if you are using the Windows system, then just use the putty for that reason. I'm using the Mac OS, but the same commands are gonna be useful from your putty as well. So just install putty and then start following these instructions from there onwards. Okay. Then go to demo. So this is the directory where I have already downloaded my key. So this directory will vary in your case. So just keep in mind, just choose the directory where your key is downloaded. Okay. And here you can see this is the key which I have already downloaded on my local system. So first of all, we need to make this key as a read only. So for that, there's already a command given over here, chmod. So just copy that command and paste it over here and hit enter, and which you can verify by running the lslart command. So here you can see now it is gone into read only mode. All right, so let's clear this one. The next command which we are going to use is from here. So this is the command for SSH. So I just copy this command and go over here and paste it over here and hit enter. And are you sure you want to continue connecting? So just type yes. And here you can see now we are logged in into our EC2 instance, which is running into our public subnet. And here you can see this is the IP which it is denoting. So 11.0.1.90. So if you go back and go to instance ID, and here you can see the same IP address, which is our private IP address. All right, let's get back to our diagram once again. So now we have set up our EC2 instance into our public subnet, and we are able to access it. Now we need to set up our EC2 instance into our private subnet. So let's go back to our EC2 dashboard and go to EC2 dashboard over here. Refresh it, and here you can see one instance, but we need one more instance. So for that, click on launch instances. And here we need to enter the name. So let's copy that name so that all the names are into the similar. So public EC2 instance, the name I have kept. So go to EC2 dashboard, launch, paste it over here and change it to private now. All right. The next thing, again, I'm just going to choose Amazon Linux. I'm just going to stick with t2.micro, and key pair, I'm just going to select the same key pair which I'm using it for public instance. So one key thing over here, I'm just doing the demo, but in actual, we try to keep these keys separate for public as well as private instance. So if you want to make it more secure, then you can create one more key for your private instance as well. But since it is a demo, so I'm just going to stick with my public key instance. So both the instances now using the same private key. So that's just the one point I would like to give you a heads up, that you can still create your own private key for your private instance. Okay, so here from the drop down, I will just stick with my original key which I have created. So I'm just going to choose that one, click on edit. Again, the VPC, I'm just going to choose VPC endpoint, VPC, then the subnet. So here, this is the key thing. So here from the drop down, choose any of the private subnets. So I'm just going to go with the private subnet demo 1A. Don't assign the public subnet, otherwise this will be your public EC2 instance. So just keep in mind. Auto assign public IP, since we are working in a private subnet, so we cannot assign, we can assign, but it doesn't make a sense because no one will be able to access that EC2 instance. So just keep it disabled, the public IP address. Okay, SSH we need to enable because we will be accessing this EC2 instance from this public EC2 instance. Okay, that's been done, and I think we are good with it. So just click on launch instances over here. And here you can see our instance is in pending state. So this is our private instance which is in pending state. So I will be back once this instance is up and running. Alright, so now my private instance is up and running. So click on this instance ID over here, and here you can see there is no public IP, but we have the private IP over here. But we need to connect to this EC2 instance. So click on this connect, and here you will find the similar instructions for connecting to your private instance. But let's take a look onto the diagram once again. So right now we already logged in into our EC2 instance, which is our public EC2 instance. I can show you once again over here. So here you can see 1.90, which is our public EC2 instance. And if you take a look, if you want to confirm from here, then go here, go to public, and here you can see this is our public EC2 instance. So now we already into the EC2 instance, into our public subnet. Then from here we are going to perform the login into our this private EC2 instance. But for that we need to have that copy of that key into our public instance. Okay, so go back to terminal over here, and here we need to create that file. So I'm just gonna put the name of that file, like I can copy that name actually. So I'm just gonna copy this name from here, go back here and paste it over here, and then just hit enter. And here we need to write the content inside this particular key, and this is going to be the private key. So here I have already opened that key content, so I'm just going to select A and copy this one and paste it over here, and after that I'm just going to save and quit. Okay, so now this private key is now available into my public EC2 instance. So here again I need to change the mode of this key to 400 and verify that once again, and here you can see it has been changed now. All right, okay, so now we are ready to log in into our private EC2 instance. So this is our public, so close this one, we don't need this one, and I think just close everything over here. Go to instances once again, close all the tabs, go to private instance, click on connect, and here we can see I have already done this step. I just need to copy this command to SSH into, go back here, paste it over here and hit enter. And here you can see we are logged in into our private EC2 instance. I'm just going to clear the screen, and I'm just going to show the IP, which is 11.0.3.40, and which you can verify from here as well. So now we are logged in into our private EC2 instance. Alright, so till now we have just done the prerequisites which is needed to set up our VPC endpoint. Okay, so the next step over here is we are gonna create some S3 into our VPC so that we can simulate this whole scenario. So here is the S3 bucket which is residing into our AWS account, but not within that VPC, but it is just somewhere into our AWS account. And later on we are just gonna use this EC2 instance. So if I draw over here, so we are just gonna later use this one to access this EC2 from here to this particular S3 bucket. So that's our target. We want to achieve it. So till now we are able to set up this thing and this thing also. So both the things are working, and now we are just gonna create a S3 bucket so that we will first try to access without the VPC endpoint. So here you can see in this diagram there is no VPC endpoint. So let's try to access this S3 without the VPC endpoint. Are we able to access that S3 or not? Go back to our AWS console, and this is my private EC2 instance. So here I'm just going to run the command AWS S3 ls. So this is the AWS command for listing the S3 bucket, and hit enter. And here it is asking AWS configure your AWS credential, because this EC2 instance is there, but it is not, this EC2 instance is up and running, but it is not aware about the credential of this AWS environment so that it can access the S3. So we need to configure the credential. So I'm just going to go back to my AWS console over here. I'm just going to type AWS configure command. And here it is going to ask for the access key. So I'll just copy my access key from a notepad and I'll just paste it over here. So here's my access key. And after that, I just need to enter my secret. So I'm just going to copy my secret from the notepad and paste it over here. And the default region, so I'm just going to check the default region. So here it is Ireland. So I'm just going to use EU West 1. So I'm just going to put EU West 1, hit enter. And hit enter. All right, so now my access key has been configured. I'm just going to clear the screen, and then I'm just going to run the command AWS S3 ls. And here you can see it is just waiting and waiting. It is not able to get the response back. Although I have some S3 bucket already created onto my AWS console, which I can show you. So if I go and search here the S3 bucket, then click on S3 bucket. And here you can see there is this test VPC endpoint bucket, and there is also this VPC endpoint bucket. But ideally, it should list all the S3 bucket over there onto my terminal, which it is not listing because it doesn't have a VPC endpoint. That's the simple answer. Okay, so I'll go back to our slide over here. So now we have seen this scenario. So let's go back and start creating our VPC endpoint. So our VPC endpoint will sit somewhere here where we will create a connectivity between our private subnet. So let's go back to our AWS console, go to the home page over here, and here in the search box type VPC, click on the VPC over here. And from the left navigation menu, you will find the option for an endpoint. So click on endpoints over here, and there is no endpoint which exists onto my AWS account. So click on create endpoint over here, enter the name. So I'm just going to put demo endpoint. It just type over here. So just put demo endpoint over here, click on AWS services. But the key thing over here is you need to define like what kind of a services it will be consuming or using. So here we need to specify S3 because we are just using this VPC endpoint for S3. So in the search box, type S3 over here and click on this com AWS EU West 1, and remember, try to use the suitable region, otherwise you will be in a trouble. So I'm working in the EU West 1 region, so I'm just going to choose that one. And here there are a couple of it, so gateway and interface. So we are just gonna stick with the gateway because interface is something different which we will cover in upcoming session. Okay, so that's a heads up. And in the VPC endpoint, so just click on select this one and click on demo VPC endpoint because that's the VPC where we are working. This whole setup is working over there. So select this one. And from that, again, if you take a look onto this diagram once again, so here I'll just try to sketch something. So this VPC endpoint is there, which we can see. But this VPC endpoint needs to communicate to this private subnet because this EC2 instance is present over here. So that's the key thing. So you have created a VPC endpoint. You have assigned that it should communicate to S3 or it should use the S3 service, but it still need a reference to which subnet from where it should be able to make the communication. So that is going to be our private subnet. Okay, so I'm just going to close this sketch and go back to my AWS console over here. So here you can see our public subnet and public route table and private route table. So this private route table, I should correct you over here once again. So here I mentioned the private subnet, but instead it should be pointing to the private route table. So that's a one correction from my side. So it should point to this route table so that EC2 instance can use this route, and then it should be able to communicate from here. And also it should be able, it should be able to use this VPC endpoint altogether. Okay, I'll just cancel this one now. Okay, so here just select the private route table, because this private route table belongs to private subnet, and then private subnet. In the private subnet we have our private EC2 instance. Okay, and then after that just click on create VPC endpoint. And here you can see our VPC endpoint has been created. I would like to take a pause over here, and I would like to tell you more about my YouTube membership, where I keep on uploading some other private sessions for my YouTube member. So here you can see there are some of the session which I'm performing using the Terraform. So the same session which I have also prepared using the Terraform for setting up the VPC endpoint. So if you are a member of, or if you are a subscriber of, or if you like this kind of a content, then also there is a membership program which you can be a part of. And also please try to be a subscriber to this channel, because that gives me a good boost to create similar kind of a content for you and to keep myself motivated. So just try to be a subscriber, or just try to be a YouTube membership program, so that you can get a more perks or more learning from DevOps and AWS side. Okay, so let's get back to our topic. All right, so now we have set up our VPC endpoint, so we should be able to access our S3 bucket from our private EC2 instance. So let's go back to our console over here, and let's run the command AWS S3 ls and hit enter. And here you can see our S3 buckets are visible over here. So with that, we can say, let's take a look onto the diagram once again. So with that, we can say that our private EC2 instance is able to communicate with our VPC endpoint, and with the help of that VPC endpoint, we are able to communicate with our S3 bucket, and we are able to list the S3 bucket which we have set up apart from the VPC, which are not present into our VPC. I hope you enjoyed the today's session on setting up the VPC endpoint. If you are interested into the similar content, then please consider subscribing to this channel so that I can keep on creating similar content for you. And also, if you are interested into some more premium content, then consider to be a premium member of this particular channel, where you will see a more in-depth sessions using Terraform and more AWS or DevOps topics. So see you into the next session. Till then, take care and bye-bye.